Hi, I'm Ed. In this video series, I'm going to walk you through basic principles for interpreting the Work Styles Questionnaire screening report from CareProfiler. The 4 videos in this series include profile validity, target ranges, day 1 factors, and the screening index and day 1 index. In this video, we'll be focusing on target ranges. The heading of the section that we're going to be focusing on in this video is work style scores. And these are all of the work style traits that we're measuring in the questionnaire. Now, I strongly encourage you to refer to your interpretation guide or to page 4 of the report to read about what the behaviors are that are associated with each of these characteristics. What we're going to be focusing on in this video is what we call the target ranges. The target ranges are represented by these gray brackets, and you can see that they're different ranges for each particular scale. The target range represents the range of scores that yield the highest probability of desired future behavior. It's the ideal range for the job. You want to think of the middle of the target range as being the bullseye or the sweet spot for each particular trait. So if an applicant scores outside of the target range, well, this is something I want to be really curious about, and I'm going to want to drill down and ask more follow-up questions about it in the interview. Wait, I already know what you're going to ask. Who determines the target ranges? Well, let's take a look. First, we turn to our scientists, as it really does need to be driven by data and research. The target ranges for each specific job were determined by using predictive design studies on over 25,000 applicants across the country. Let's take a moment to go over what a predictive design study is, which is really the gold standard in establishing legal defensibility of hiring tools. So in a predictive design study, the applicants would complete the Work Styles Questionnaire during the application process just like normal. However, the results would not be seen or included in the hiring decision. Now, after 12 to 18 months has passed, we'll open up the Work Styles Questionnaire scores and correlate them for the first time with things like tenure, performance, and management effort of each employee. This allows us to see where the most successful people in each position scored on each trait in the Work Styles Questionnaire, thus giving us the ideal target range. Now that's really strong data, but we didn't stop with our own research. We flew to Washington, D.C. and cross-validated our findings against the United States government's Occupational Network Resource Center. Okay, you caught me. We didn't actually have to fly to Washington, D.C. because the Department of Labor's Occupational Network is actually online and available to anyone. The Occupational Network profiles over 50,000 jobs, giving researchers access to relevant work styles, knowledge, skills, and other characteristics related to success in a given position. We cross-reference our findings from our 25,000 applicants with profiles from ONET from every job in health, human, and community service industries. The result is data-backed, legally defensible target ranges for over 1,000 jobs in health and human services. Wow, who knew our scientists could be so practical? I guess it's why we love them and why we keep them hard at work in the back room over here at CareProfiler headquarters. Now, let's take a closer look at how these target ranges play out. Remember that as the job changes, so do the target ranges. So with the example characteristic of attention to detail, we see that the target range of attention to detail for housekeeping is pretty high, while it's lower for an activities position. And finally, we see for the billing specialist position, the target range for attention to detail is much higher than the other two positions. which makes sense. You don't want the person sending out the bills to get it wrong. So I bet you're wondering what happens if an applicant scores outside of the target range? Don't freak out just yet. There's actually still a lot you can do to help things go right. Let's take a closer look at an applicant. So for example, we see that Sarah here scored quite a ways outside the range on emotional self-control. And if we look just to the right, we see a brief statement around what could be the potential pitfall with this. And this one says that Sarah might be more expressive than is ideal for this job. So the idea here is that during the screening and interview stages, these red flagged areas are things that I'm going to want to be very curious about. And I'm going to want to use the interview guide that the system generates for Sarah to drill down and get a better sense of whether she can change her behavior when necessary. You'd be surprised. Sometimes people actually do learn about themselves and change. The target ranges are a helpful tool for discovering which areas you need to check up on. Now, it's also important to point out that if you hire this person, these red areas are also areas that you're going to want to focus your training and coaching on to help this person be successful. So as a hiring manager, when you see scores outside of the target range, there's basically two ideas to be thinking about. First, how might this impact their work behavior? And two, if I hire this person, this is something I'm going to need to check in on. So the WSQ report is really a roadmap to tell you what do I need to look at closer in the interview. And then if I do hire this person, how can I help them grow and develop? All right, so let's quickly review what we've learned about target ranges. First off, during the interview stage, if a score is outside of the target range, be sure to be really curious and refer to the interview guide to get ideas about how you can drill down into that behavior. And then second, be aware that if you decide to hire this person, those areas outside of the target range will likely be areas that you'll need to focus on in their development. Now, speaking of managing developing, there's certainly a lot more we'll need to talk about there. And you know what? You can look for some upcoming management series, of course starring me, in which we'll talk a lot more how to get the best out of all of your employees. In the meantime, be sure to check out the other videos in the screening video series to get the most impact out of the screening report. Well, we've made it through our review of the target ranges and how we use science and the United States government to help us establish them. I hope this has been as exciting for you as it has been for me. And of course, I'll see you in the next video.